Where do I start? I have had a few interactions, but one of the ones that freaked me out the most internally was when I was on register scanning an older man's things, and I suddenly heard him said, I now know your name. And I just looked at him, and he was staring where my name tag was, on my chest, and looked at me with this smile. The vibe this guy gave me was shouting creepy. So, I look very young. This might be important. Honestly, I don't know. So, this customer always comes to my lane. And I'm a pretty fast cashier, so I figured that was the very reason why he would always come to me. He used to tell me jokes and I would only laugh, so as to not to be rude while I was scanning his stuff. I changed my shift for school during the fall, and one day he sees me after like a month of not seeing me and gave me a rosary. You know, this little necklace that is used for praying. I am not religious or anything, but I said thanks and I left it in the drawer because I didn't know what to do with it. And one day he asked me if I kept it, and I said sure, so I wouldn't sound rude. A few months later I quit to focus on school more, and I don't know how come, but I looked up the sex offenders in my area and he was one. Ugh. Ew. Disgusting, revolting, nauseous, horrible. I don't know. It made me rethink all our previous interactions. I worked the night shift in a 24-hour large store when I was 17 years old, in the bakery department. One night, around 3 a.m., a random guy walks up to me and starts asking where he can find camping equipment. After about 5 minutes of random questions, he wanders off. Two undercover street clothes, loss prevention guys, come rushing up to me once the guy is out of sight, and they want to know everything he said. After I tell them, they let me know that said random guy had been watching me every single night for 3 freaking weeks, and he had been hanging out in his car when I got off shift. All that time I thought the guys who managed the shopping carts were walking me to my car just to be nice. They had him arrested that night and banned him from the stores. It turns out he had all kinds of hardcore adult magazines in his car, along with binoculars and a couple of knives. I never saw him again, but it seriously creeped me out. Somebody please tell me, is this a red flag, or am I just overthinking the whole ordeal? So, I have been thinking about this for a few weeks, and I get told that this isn't something that should happen at work, but it only happened the one time, but I figure I would ask over here. During one of my shifts, I was on the register, finally getting a moment to just take a breather. It's been 2 hours into my shift, and I haven't been on my phone too much during that shift. I decided to really check my phone while we had a brief period of nothing. I suddenly felt a presence behind me, and I looked over my shoulder to see one of the managers standing directly behind me. As he was standing like 3 inches behind me, and I was still behind my register. That, for anyone wondering, it's roughly 10 centimeters. It caught me off, but he didn't do anything else. I felt a bit uncomfortable since I don't like people getting physically close to me, and I was too shocked. It didn't happen to just me either. Over a month ago, my friend and co-worker had to take an important phone call she had to make before going back to work. She was on her lunch break and in the break room, and I'm not sure if she was clocked back in or not. And she was on the phone, and this same manager apparently came up behind her and was looking over her shoulder. He was asking her what she was doing. I wasn't there when it happened, but she told me that after she finally came back down to the front afterwards. She told me that she didn't like how he came up behind her like that and feels uncomfortable around him. I haven't had any other uncomfortable situations with this manager, but a few weeks after it happened, I just can't stop thinking about it, and I'm wondering if I should be concerned or if I'm just overthinking the situation. Very recently, I worked an overnight shift and I was working by myself at one point. My boss overseeing things was on her lunch break, and my other co-worker was all the way across the store from me. I was working in our store's former garden center, which is now basically just a second stock room. Long story short, I clearly saw a dark figure run from one aisle to the next and knock over a bucket of tools in the process. I just hauled my ass out of there, told my boss, and didn't bother going in there unless my boss and other co-worker came with me. All three of us went there and we saw nothing. Nothing came out of it. My boss is a very straight-less square, if you will, and I just couldn't envision her doing this as a prank. And there's simply no way that she could have snuck over to my area in such a short amount of time compared to when I last saw her. I just don't know what that was.